So I guess the strategy going forward is just going to be, I don't know, do like Biden did and stay in the basement.
Kamala Harris has ducked a Time magazine interview. The owner, the chair, is pretty outraged that Kamala Harris, who wants to be president, won't do this sit-down interview. I've been hearing that apparently it's a big deal. A bunch of presidents always do these sit-down interviews at Time magazine to explain what their policy vision is. Joe Biden apparently had these conversations in the past. Donald Trump.
I want to say two things at the beginning. The first is just for the record and for those people watching on television. The Economic Club of Chicago and Bloomberg both invited Vice President Harris to a similar interview about her economic plans that she has declined so far. And second, just to set some parameters about this interview, which I was just discussing with President Trump, we're going to focus on business and the economy.
That there was from the Chicago Economic Club. And of course, you also have this another little bit where I showed you guys at the beginning from the Beanie guy, Tim Pool, because, she's canceled a Time magazine interview. And of course, to go on top of that, she's also canceled the Al Smith dinner. She's not going to be going to that. And also to go on top of that, too, there's also this other little bit that's out there which says that she wants to do Rogan all of a sudden. We got a lot to talk about in here, but at the same time, though, you guys obviously saw the thumbnail. It's called Replacing Kamala, or Is It Possible? And, of course, you've got people like Dr. Steve Turley, who, by the way, I do respect, and we'll link this video in the description box, bringing this up in one of his videos from earlier today that I wanted to just kind of like show you guys some of the scuttlebutt that's being kicked around, so that way we can figure out why it is that Kamala Harris is suddenly saying no to the mainstream media and yes, all of a sudden, to podcast.
Or the swamp, we're getting word that a number of Democrats are desperately trying to get rid of Kamala one way or another. And you won't believe who's waiting in the wings to replace her. We got the latest on the chatter, and we're going to see precisely why Democrat operatives are getting so painfully panicked as Election Day looms.
Yes, there are people out there talking about replacing her. And of course, there's also the bit that you guys are seeing, the B-roll footage, where Bill Clinton basically said that if the border had been secure, if the immigrants had been properly vetted, we might not have lost someone like, say, Lake and Raleigh. We might not have these crimes. Then again, at the same time, though, Bill did try to then turn right back around and defend Kamala Harris's position on immigration, basically saying we're not producing enough babies. But of course, we're also aborting a lot of babies. So I'm pretty sure if we stopped aborting a lot of babies, I'm pretty sure that that would help curb a big part of the issue. We need to build a wall. I don't think we need to talk about immigration at this moment in time. I've done a lot of videos on that. So let's just go ahead and stick to what it is that we're going to talk about in this video here before I go completely off the rails and go completely off topic. Now, if you guys are new here, welcome to the channel. If you guys can, please hit the like button so that way the video will take off up the algorithm. Also, please click on your notifications. That way you guys are notified when the videos come out. And please consider subscribing. It's free, so please go ahead and do so if you guys can. I would really and truly appreciate that. If not, okay, I get it. But still, though, at the same time, though, we got to talk about this issue because obviously there's a lot of scuttlebutt out there, people wondering exactly what is going on here. Let me go ahead and start out with the replacing Kamala Harris question. So I just saw this little clip that I'm going to play for you guys from MSDNC. Apparently, it's been getting kicked around. Makes you wonder what's actually going on here.
Some reasons why Democrats, there's a case for panic. I mean, there's a case, there's data out there that should alarm Democrats. And you go through and look at some of those things. When you hear people like Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan or Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin privately telling people that the vice president's behind in those states, that's a good reason to worry. You look at her numbers with African-American voters, her numbers with Hispanic voters, that's a good reason to worry.
And there's also rumors out there that, of course, that they're looking to maybe replace her with Hillary.
Miller, senior advisor to President Trump, turned heads the other day when he tweeted out that the only plausible explanation to all of this is 3D chess to actively replace Kamala. Democrats want to get rid of Kamala at the last minute and replace her, according to him, with freaking Hillary. Senior advisor Stephen Miller replied to that tweet with this, quote, "Lots of DC gossip that Democrats are trying to replace Kamala. This would explain the aggressive counter-programming from Biden and Clinton. Explosive new plagiarism scandal adds even more pressure for a change atop a ticket."
Which, of course, won't happen. And the biggest reason why they won't do it is because the ballots have already been printed out. Early voting starts in most places. It's already started in a lot of places. And by the way, the returns right now for the Democrats right now don't look too good. That's the biggest reason why I'm going to link that video from Dr. Steve Turley in the description box, because he's got the voter data and he's got the voting data itself and exactly the ballot returns and all that stuff. By the way, you can also follow this on Twitter. And of course, you're seeing some stuff right here in the B-roll footage from NBC News that I'll play for you guys here in a second, which of course was this past weekend on the Sunday shows, where they basically found out that in their own poll, yeah, she's tied with Trump nationwide at 48%. But of course, I'm also going to be showing you guys some stuff here in the B-roll footage that you guys will see. IA Polls, good account on X, Twitter. They keep track of all polls, almost like Real Clear Politics average. And of course, they basically archive them and show you exactly where the race is. And you'll notice the trend that Kamala Harris is in a bit of a hole. She's a bit of a mess. By the way, they love to tell you that this has been going on for roughly only the past couple of weeks. No, it's actually been going on since before the debate, even a few weeks before that. And of course, the people who actually do polls constantly, rather than the ones who do it for the media, they've been calling a Trump victory for a while, and their polls have been reading exact opposite of what the mainstream media is reading. But of course, the media is getting poll numbers like what you're about to see here.
The 5-point advantage that Kamala Harris had in our last poll is gone. What's behind that shift?
Yeah, exactly, Savannah. I mean, just look at them side by side and you can see it. Remember that poll we took a month ago that you see here? It was just after that first Trump-Harris debate. Since then, we've had the VP debate. There have been some campaign activity, some interviews, some things that have changed in that time. I think this might be the biggest for Harris. We just asked the basic image perception people have. Is it positive or negative of these candidates? The Trump number's always been somewhere in this territory. In fact, this is a little bit high for him, believe it or not, 43% positive. But look at Harris, 43 positive, 49 negative. The significance, we polled this a month ago. She was 48% positive and 45 negative. She was above water, as they say. That's completely reversed. It now looks very similar to Trump's. That's a pretty big shift when you're talking about a race this close. And then there's the weight of the fact she's the VP in an unpopular administration. We asked about President Biden's policies. Are they helping or hurting your family? Just a quarter of voters said they're helping. Nearly half said they're hurting. And then here's the interesting twist. We also asked folks, think back to when Donald Trump was president. Did his policies help or hurt your family? And look at the difference. 44% helping, 31 hurting. Trump's, the retrospective, you would say, opinion of Trump's presidency among voters, arguably higher now than when he was president.
And how much things have changed. And of course, there's also the YouGov poll that CBS put out the other day. And by the way, YouGov has a bit of a flawed model as well. But basically, the point is this right here. These polls have taken a big turn. And of course, you don't win elections based on polls. You got to get out there and physically vote. Turnout's what actually wins it. And of course, we all know that Trump's base is going to show up and show out. And of course, we all know that Donald Trump is an extremely strong finisher. So why in the world is Kamala Harris deciding to go with this approach of not making any public appearances except on podcasts? Well, it's desperation. She's also got a bit scheduled with not Joe Rogan, but Brett Baer. Apparently, it's already been made. And of course, I think it's supposed to be coming out tomorrow night. Chances are I'll probably watch it to see exactly how bad it can get, because Brett Baer is probably going to ask her tougher questions than most people would, because obviously she refused to do the Fox News debate, but now she's going on and she's going to be doing an interview because obviously this woman is desperate. And also to go on top of that, when you've got Joe Biden at this moment in time currently kneecapping her, when you've got the party as a whole kneecapping her, when you've got Barack Obama going out of his way to lecture black men because they don't plan on voting for it. We'll be talking about black men in video number 2 that's going to be coming out tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and make it tonight. And of course, you've also got other stuff like, for example, the fact that her campaign is completely, totally incompetent. And of course, they love to pick random fights with governors from the state of Florida and say that they're trying to make a hurricane a political issue, when clearly the political issue is being made by the person who is currently the vice president of the United States. So, no, it's not replacing Kamala Harris that's going on. It's Democrats that, quite frankly, regret having used her. I talked about this in the video that I did, that I'll link in the description box, on the Biden-Harris little mini civil war that's going on. I mentioned at the very end of the video that Ron Klain, Biden's campaign manager, had to point out to several of these people, especially donors, that Joe Biden was actually polling the best against Donald Trump of all the other candidates they could have gone to, because Obama wanted an open convention. These candidates included people like Gretchen Whitmer. It included, of course, Gavin Newsom. It included a whole assortment of Democratic Party candidates that, quite frankly, nobody wanted to vote for. And also, to go on top of that, Biden was also losing the polls to Trump, too. Now, me personally, I think that he stood a better chance with Joe Biden because he's likable, his personality, even though I don't personally like the man or like his policies and believe he's probably the worst president we've ever had. But then again, though, we also know who the hell's actually been running things, so maybe we can blame that person, and we all know who it is. I don't think I have to say it out loud. But still, though, the point is this right here. Biden, while he may not have been able to beat Trump this time around, could at least protect the Senate and Congress. So I think what the hell is really and truly going on here is that Democrats are just simply regretting their choice or their pick of getting behind Kamala rather than having that open convention that Obama wanted. But there is obviously more in this video to discuss, and that is she throwing it? Now, guys, before I ask you guys, or before I bring up the notion or go through the notion for potentially throwing the election, I want to play the rest of that Tim Pool bit for a second, because obviously his take was that it's basically you broke it, you bought it, you stuck with it. But I want to roll this anyways. Of course, I'm going to be interrupting halfway through, giving some commentary, and then coming back on that because the clip is relatively long. But
begging to explain to people what his policy vision is. Kamala Harris has dodged this. It's remarkable because right now we're seeing a bunch of news related to this. Kamala Harris, she skipped the Al Smith dinner. She's dropping in the polls, and she's not doing an interview with Time. At the same time, she apparently wants to go on Joe Rogan. There's no consensus on what she should be doing or not. I got to tell you, my friends, the way I see this, it is the Kamala campaign playing in a tailspin, and they can't pull out of it.
I say go right ahead and go on Joe Rogan. Seriously, because Joe Rogan has got a history of making fun of her. However, I personally am going to be doing a video on Rogan because apparently Trump is booked to go on Rogan too. And of course, if you guys know Joe Rogan, then obviously you guys know that he has a lot of guests on. However, I think that the audience learns more from the guests than they do from Joe. I'll probably explain that in Friday's video because obviously we're looking at the possibility of one or two people, potentially both of them, of course, presidential nominees, eventually going on that show. But speaking of Rogan, I do want to say one more thing, though, about that. Okay. Now, I'm not so sure I believe that Kamala Harris is going to be going on Rogan. And the reason why is because during the Democratic National Convention, they teased a special guest. They teased Taylor Swift. They teased Beyonce, only for it trying to be pink. So this fire, once again, could be them pulling the wool over people's eyes. But let's continue.
Now, here's what's really remarkable here is these tweets from Mark Benioff. And he explains how Harris has declined repeated requests for an interview over what she's going to do. What has she done instead? She cracked a beer on Colbert. Now she wants to go on Joe Rogan? Is that true? I can't imagine that she's going to duck out on Time Magazine, which of course is going to give her a softball interview. And even after she refused to do the press, they still wrote this puff piece about her. What kind of president would Kamala Harris be? And then for Donald Trump, they write, how far would Trump go? And you look at the Donald Trump one, it's red and black. Ooh, it's menacing. And you look at the Kamala Harris one, and it's bright and blue and happy. How does this make sense? My friends, I honestly don't know. But I can only assume it's that the Harris campaign has resigned themselves to defeat, and they're trying to find an out. I would not be surprised if it were true that Kamala Harris doesn't want to be president at all. They had no options. Biden was down massively. Trump was going to landslide against Joe Biden. That was going to affect down ticket. So they said, we need to get someone in, but we can't transfer the funds from Joe Biden to anybody else. We're going to have a president a couple of months out from the election with no budget. It's got to be Kamala Harris. And Kamala's like, I never wanted this job in the first place. And you can't quit. You can't quit.
I would 100% agree with that take. However, I know the Democrats, I know how they operate. They're going to try to win regardless. However, there is something else that needs to be said. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit later on this week about how it is that Kamala Harris has gone out of her way to basically just piss anybody and everybody off, whether it be the Columbus Day spiel where she called it Indigenous Day and basically blamed Europeans for everything, when obviously she left out some very, very important stuff. Obviously, it's going to piss off Italians. It's going to piss off anybody that actually loves America. Also, to go on top of that, you also had this bit where Gretchen Whitmer decided she wanted to mock the Holy Sacrament. Yeah, that right there is going to piss off a lot of Catholics. And by the way, Gretchen Whitmer, she probably wants to run for president in 2028 if Kamala Harris doesn't win. So obviously there might be some incentive to not help Kamala out. It's possible that, of course, yeah, they may be trying to actually throw this one. However, this right here is the truth. They're not trying to throw it. I think these people are really and truly out of options, and you can tell by the way they're lashing out that they're angry that nobody supports them. Trust me, they still want to win. Trust me, they're still going to try to pull the same shady crap they do every election cycle, which is one of the main reasons why it is I tell people to go out there and go vote early, because it's normally election day where they pull the shenanigans. Now, there is this other theory that is that Democrats will probably, try to throw the election, because their goal is to, their goal is to blame Trump for everything that goes wrong in 2025. Let me explain. Liberal media is running with this narrative that the economy is great and that people are stupid and that they can't believe that there's something is wrong with them, that they're messed up. They're living in a fantasy, when obviously the mainstream media is going out of their way to gaslight us. Now, you would figure at some point in time these people would realize that people obviously have a different reality than the mainstream media does. Of course, the reality that you live in is the reality, of course, that which you are in, which means that you are right to feel the way you are, if, of course, the environment around you is the way it is that you feel that it is. That right there was one hell of a word salad. But the point is this right here. The mainstream media is not reporting actual reality. That right there is basically what I'm trying to say. I did my best Kamala Harris impersonation here. I apologize. But still, the point is this right here. The reality of which that you live in right now is not the reality that the mainstream media is telling you that exists. They tell you the economy is great. So I guess what they're looking for is they're hoping for a crash to occur sometime after this election. And of course, many people are looking at the possibility of the Fed cutting interest rates, which of course would signal 9 to 11 months afterwards there being a crash. What they're looking for is they're looking for a campaign issue to run on 2026 and possibly 2028. You see, Trump screwed things up. And by the way, they've also got to get rid of the radical leftists in their party so that way they can get elected. The problem is that 2026 Senate map for Democrats is an absolute joke of a Senate map for them. It's absolutely horrible, so therefore it's an unrealistic goal, which is not realistic given the current makeup of policy that they have. But then again, though, who the hell knows at this moment in time? I personally don't think this strategy, if this is what they're trying to do, is going to work. I think Harris is going to lose anyways, but still at the same time, though, do expect shenanigans and do expect foul play going forward beyond Election Day, because obviously the Democrats never stop with their being the Democrats. With that right there being said, guys, please hit the like button. Please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this. Please hit the subscribe button. Please also cut the notifications on. And, of course, I've got a couple other videos coming out to go along with this one here tomorrow. So make sure you guys stick around for both, and I'll see you guys later.